Hello leaders, my name's Shane Malcolm and I'm with Leadership Niagara, and this is our Return on Leadership series. In today's episode, we're joined by Jessica Potts, President of Inspired Strategy Group, alumni of Leadership Niagara, and all-around community leader. Jessica, you may see her in many things across our community, whether it's in pearl gloves or hats and horses. So we're really excited to sit down and have a conversation and catch up with her, see what she's been up to. Hey Jess, how are you?
Hi Shane, I'm wonderful, thanks. How about you?
Good. So we're here today with Jessica Potts from Inspired Strategy Group. So thanks for being part of our Return on Leadership segment.
I'm excited to be here, thanks for having me.
So what's been going on with you? What's been happening in Jess's world since I've last seen you?
Wow, on the personal side, I've just bought a home in Niagara,
Yay.
so I'm very excited to settle here. And professionally, things are just really taking off, so
Awesome.
Things are going really well.
Nice. Yeah, I just got my card to the new homeowners club too, so that's exciting. So that's something we get to share as well.
Housewarming parties.
Yes,
Exchange.
Lots of wine, lots of other stuff. Note plug to friends that are coming. So we're here on Return on Leadership, and we just wanted to get to know you a little bit more, talk about what Inspired Strategy is doing in our community, what you're doing as a community leader, as somebody that has so much experience with being involved in our community and giving back. So we wanted to kick things off with a familiar face, and so we're happy that you can join us.
Thank you.
Awesome. So we're just gonna get to know you a little bit more today, find out more about Inspire Strategy Group, what you guys are all about, what you do with your organization, and how your work kind of gets you involved in the community.
Well, I think to summarize it, a phrase that came from you really resonates with me today as I think about how I describe the work that I do with my company, inspired action. So it's about getting people engaged and getting people motivated and then having a tangible outcome with it. So
Right.
how I do that, I work with leaders and teams to clarify processes, to help them all get on the same page, and ultimately to build trust so that they can move towards that goal together.
How does Inspired Strategy, in your words, kind of lead within Niagara? You've been a business owner now for how many years?
It's been just over 5 years.
Oh, wow.
So funny how those things happen. Instead of returning to my government job after a maternity leave, I realized that I would be better suited, my lifestyle would be better suited to self-employment. So I headed down that path, which has been a fun and wild ride, of course. It's just been very exciting to have the opportunity to work with so many diverse teams, from large corporate teams to small businesses, and really help them see those tangible results.
What's been some of the major successes for you with Inspired Strategy Group?
Wow, the first one that comes to mind is really investing in my own personal development, because I work with leaders and teams to help them develop. So the past year and a half or 2 years, I've really invested in my own development, and I became a Gallup certified strengths coach,
Awesome.
which provides me with a tool and a common language to bring my participants together. And it's rooted in positive psychology. So really what it says is that we learn more from our successes than we do from our failures. And so when we think about that in the context of leadership, it really changes the perspective and helps with followers and team members to feel more valuable, to understand what they can contribute.
Right, so out with the old concept of negative reinforcement really gets the best out of everybody.
So the concept of well-rounded is fundamentally flawed.
Right.
And I've found myself victim to its lure, its appeal, thinking about my own children. Oh, Johnny is good at sports, he's good at academics, he's great with music. We want them to be well-rounded, but in reality, what we should be doing is focusing on being a star, sharpening our points of excellence. Because you think about it, Oprah might be very good at doing her own books, but she doesn't.
Right.
So the concept is if we all focus on being a star, being great at what we do, instead of being well-rounded, but if our team is a group of stars and you come together, then you end up with a well-rounded team.
Right.
So that's one
because each point will have something that they focus on that brings value to the team.
Exactly.
Huh. So going back a little bit, I guess, to Inspired Strategy Group again, because we're trying to put a little focus on you. What has been the biggest contribution that you think you've made through your organization to Niagara?
Ooh, professionally, it's definitely been working with the different teams and groups.
Right.
There's one team that I work with who needed help with their strategy. So they wanted to figure out the next 12 to 18 months, what are our critical success factors? What are our strategic initiatives that we can do to make sure that we stay at the top of our industry? So we brought together the leadership team over the course of 2 days, and many Post-it notes, many discussions later. So just setting the tone and environment where they can feel comfortable contributing, and then figuring out where they are going to engage the best. Because the difference with working with companies versus, say, large franchises or corporations, they might do a feasibility study which will say, yes, this company would work here based on these demographics. But when you're working with people, real people, we have to understand where they are going to engage and where they're going to get excited, because when people are engaged and excited and passionate about the work that they do, that's when we see the most excellent results.
Right, because it's basically the fundamental thing of satisfying what's in it for me. Even though you work for an organization, everybody has their own personal motivations, the things that really get them to sharpen or realize what they bring to the table. So that's pretty cool. So I know that you have a rich connection with Leadership Niagara, being our recent first ever Distinguished Alumni recipient. And I know that's something that you hold so dear, so that means a lot to us, that it means so much to you. So tell us how your path with Leadership Niagara even came into being.
I first heard about Leadership Niagara probably around 2010, and was very inspired at the idea of bringing together a group of emerging community leaders to help them learn more about the community, learn about the socio and economic sides of what make up a really strong and healthy community. So that was the initial appeal. Getting to meet new people, explore that network, all through the lens of community, and having that inspired action happen is it's really a magical thing. It's really a magical process.
So you were part of our Leadership Niagara cohort. So tell us about your Leadership Niagara experience back in 2011-12.
It was transformative, first of all. Let me tell you that we did 10 monthly learning days. And throughout the course of that time, we got to meet different leaders in the community, some political, some community leaders, again, deepening our knowledge of the things that make a strong community. And the culminating project for me was Rita the Book, which was a project for Literacy Link Niagara that promoted adult literacy. And so it was fascinating to understand the different components of literacy, everything from directional, like reading a map, to telling time and navigating your way through very simple, fundamental day-to-day things. Without those fundamental skills, people have a harder time integrating with the community and being successful. So we wanted to cast a spotlight on those issues. And so we did this with a mannequin who was named Rita the Book. And Rita would pop up over a 2-week period in 10 strategic locations around Niagara. We had partners with the media, so we would release clues that about Rita's location.
That's awesome.
And then people could call in and win prizes. So it was really neat to engage the community in that sense, to raise awareness for Leadership Niagara and Literacy Link Niagara. LN and LLN.
Lots of L's and N's. So your project team came up with the Rita concept, or was that something that was brought forward by Literacy Link?
We borrowed Rita from, I think it was London, who had their own Rita. But it was surprisingly hard to source out our own mannequin.
Oh. You couldn't just steal one or borrow one from like H&M or something?
No, we had to go find our own mannequin, and then of course outfit her differently every day. But
of course, we don't want Rita wearing the same thing. That's just a fashion police nightmare.
It could have impacted our results. So we had Rita dressed differently, and again popping up in these strategic locations, and it's just something fairly eye-catching to see this weird random mannequin
just in the community.
Just in the community, and then understanding the story behind her.
Was there any kind of community feedback or interaction that you guys got from that experience?
Yeah, definitely. There was a lot of people who, again, were surprised by some of those fundamental literacy concepts that they didn't really appreciate were part of literacy. So Literacy Link Niagara, the community partner, was just thrilled with how everything turned out, and expressed to us that it was a big success.
And I mean, just to zone in quickly on even the map aspect or map reading aspect of it, you fast forward to 2018, where we probably aren't that adept at reading a physical map. If you put it in front of us to say, get to, Buffalo using a map, like, it's not something that we potentially have that capability to do. So that's pretty interesting that it's such a fundamental thing, but through technology, we've kind of unsharpened those skill sets over time. Are you still in touch with anybody from your cohort year or your project team? Because I from our experience, the project teams tend to be very close knit, even following their Leadership Niagara journey. So have you maintained relationships with your project team members?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Awesome. Maintained relationships with people from the broader cohort, as well as people from the smaller group. The wonders of social media keep everybody in touch,
right?
But some of us are in touch, in 3D.
In 3D, in real life. So we know you've started Inspired Strategy, but what did the program kind of become the catalyst for in your life, in your opinion?
Well, something that's really neat is that one of my fellow cohort members was in the process of leaving her corporate job and starting her own business while we were in Leadership Niagara. And at the same time, my belly was rapidly growing as I was pregnant with my second son, who came shortly after graduation. So the interesting part of it is that, inspired by that person in my cohort, I didn't return to my job after my maternity leave.
Right.
I launched my own business. So seeing someone else do it was inspiring enough to make me realize I can do this too.
Yeah. I mean, that is such a great story, because at the heart of it, it's what we talk about, right? It's leading with passion, right? So in discovering yourself, you're figuring out the things that you want to spend your time and energy on, and for some reason, well, not for some reason, but it always works out that those things that we're passionate about obviously takes a lot of time and investment, but it doesn't seem the same way as if you're working somewhere else that requires the same amount of time and investment that you weren't passionate about, right? So you find room and space for the things that you want to find room and space for.
It's interesting that you talk about passion. There's an article that really changed my view. It said, follow your passion, but that's really flawed advice. When we think about this was predominant advice when I was coming of age, just follow your passion. It's easy, just follow your passion. But the danger in that is that it implies that the passion precedes the job, or the passion precedes anything else. The best advice is truly to discover your passion, and discovering your passion is a process of elimination. So you have to get involved in awesome programs like Leadership Niagara or different community groups, community projects. That's a very easy, low risk way to start to discover your passion.
And I mean, we can't all be following our passions, right? So there needs to be, in the sense of, it still physically only applies to a smaller portion. Like, not everybody can throw up their hands in the air and say, okay, I'm gonna leave this and we're all gonna just pursue individual things. So I think for you, that process of saying, hey, I'm discovering myself, and as I'm doing that, I'm paying attention to the things that are part of my star system, and then latching on to what makes sense within the reality of your circumstances.
And I agree in part, but I disagree in the sense that I think that whether you're an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur, someone who works within a business or within a company who can migrate their way up the ranks, can take a lot of initiative and still find what they're passionate about.
Even within a structured system. You're right. Yeah.
And so that's one of the concepts that that my background is based in is that everybody has talent, and talent is present in everyone, and it's up to us to find out how we can best utilize those talents. The best leaders will set out the goal, but not necessarily micromanage the process.
Right.
So it lets each of us determine the method or the manner in which we are going to do that, which is going to give us energy at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, you look back at, especially I'm sure for you being a young entrepreneur when you started, with starting Inspired Strategy Group, and I'm sure you deal with the wealth of, well, there's not a lot of experience that you have. Every turn is a new learning opportunity. But you stepped into that space leading it the way Jessica knew how to. Right, so you did it your way, you brought your own flair, your own charisma, and it wasn't necessarily following the context of, what books tell you steps to follow in creating your own business, or steps to follow in how you should be an entrepreneur or a boss, right? So you're putting your own authentic Jessica forward in discovering what you do, right? And I think that's part of that passion thing you talked about.
Yeah, and it's interesting, the deeper I've gotten into the study of leadership or strengths or strategy, the more that term authentic has come up. We can look to world leaders, we can look to local leaders and admire and aspire to be like them, but at the end of the day we have to do it our own way. And so it's one of the neatest concepts that, as we talk about what is leadership, one of the studies that I've really bought into by Gallup, the world leader in human behavior and polling, they surveyed 10,000 followers to find out what they were really looking for in leaders. And when they brought all of the data together, it came down to 4 fundamental things: trust, stability, compassion, and hope. And so as leaders, it's up to us to find how are we going to deliver that value to our followers: trust, stability, compassion, and hope. So,
which is very interesting, because one would think somewhere along that line people would be really hell-bent on credentials or years of experience, or what we typically think as prerequisites for credibility, right? So that's pretty interesting.
As one of the youngest leaders and executive directors of a community program, I think that you're proof positive that decades of experience don't really affect your leadership ability.
Yeah, and again, the approach is, and I think you appreciate this too, like you approach it with the curiosity of there's so much to still learn, right? So there's never the assumption that I already know the answer. It's always that appreciative inquiry, and if it falls in line with what you already know, that's great, but at least you're open to being informed of new insights and perspectives. So I want to ask you a specific question about your Leadership Niagara experience, and when some of the benefits or some of the lessons really kicked in for you.
Of course, there were many benefits that I felt immediately, connecting with people, connecting with the community. But as you say that, it's funny, I got this grin thinking about one specific day. I think it was the October session. I had lost my voice. And I realized through that process, I really make a living by talking. And so it was the day that we were visited by the president of the university. And if you know me, you know that I don't get starstruck from celebrity.
Right.
But if it's someone local who's very successful, who's done a lot for the community, then I'm in awe. And so it was Dr. Lightstone at the time, and I had 1,000,001 questions for him, but I had lost my voice. So I couldn't let this opportunity go unquestioned. And so here I am whispering to the person next to me, trying to get him to ask my question. And he bless his heart, he didn't quite get it the way that I wanted. And so I decided to try to ask it myself with my very hoarse voice, and didn't think anything of it at the time. 2 years later, when I was starting, I'd now launched my own business. I had a small baby, and I started to think about teaching at the college. And I spoke to the associate dean of the business department, who had been part of my cohort. And he said, do you know when I knew that you would be a great teacher? And I said, no, I have no idea. And he said, the day that Dr. Lightstone was in our class and you wanted to ask a question but had lost your voice, and the whole room went silent to hear what you had to say.
Wow.
And I hadn't even realized or appreciated that moment.
Right.
And what a huge compliment that was, that, you know, a
2
year and a
years
half or
later,
2 years later, here it was coming back.
Wow.
In a job interview type setting. So
right.
you really never know when these things are going to pay off. So always be thinking that every interaction you have with people could be a job interview, because it ended up being one for me.
That's awesome. And I mean, I think that just underscores, even in your space, I think when you deal with these teams, and sometimes what you might be talking about may not land right away, or it's accepted, but the proof in the pudding piece doesn't really come in until months later, or till a particular experience happens, and they're like, this is what Jessica was talking about, right? And I think that delayed experience, I think sometimes is something that should be appreciated in leadership and development, because it's not no matter what Jess or Shane says to you right away, it may not come into fruition in that moment, and it may take a particular situation or circumstance for you to see, like, okay, no, I get it. No, this is all kind of coming together. Not that you didn't believe it before, but you know, you just want to see it for yourself, or for it to work.
I'm a big fan of experiential learning, so to sort of get that fundamental foundational knowledge at the onset, and then have the opportunity to apply it over time. And it's like I say to my college students now, question everything. Just because I'm at the front of the room as an authority figure doesn't mean that I'm right. So you need to walk out of this room and really appreciate that and apply it to your unique context and your unique experiences, and reflect on it. I'm a big fan of reflecting. It was Barry Wright, who is a well-known professor at Brock University. Barry says, reflection is key to growth. If you're the same person you were an hour ago, you just wasted the hour. But as you say, the effects aren't always felt in those 60 minutes. Sometimes they're felt 60 months or even 60 years.
But you wouldn't be able to still recognize that growth or change had it not been for some kind of reflection, right? So whether the reflection happens immediately or years later, you can't gauge that growth or change if you aren't actually going through the process of reflection. So Jess, so in the last 8 months to a year, you've actually been part of 2 really big community initiatives that have raised over $150,000, I think, right?
Just shy of $150,000.
Just shy, tell me about that.
So again, when we're talking about Leadership Niagara here, so understanding the impact that those community projects can have was part of the inspiration for me to become involved in 2 fairly new initiatives. One of them is a charity boxing event where we take regular everyday people, have them train for anywhere from 4 to 6 months, and get into a boxing ring in front of 1,300 community leaders, friends, family, and duke it out with an opponent. It's called Pearl Gloves Charity Boxing Event. I'm the chair of the committee, and in November of 2017, we raised $110,000 for local MS programming. So Niagara's fight against MS, supporting 3 local charities. And what really impacted me, a couple weeks ago, we had our charities come and visit the fight team and help inspire them to their journey, because it's going to be a very emotional, up and down journey.
And very physical.
And I know that there's times that they want to give up. And so some of the users of the program, some of the beneficiaries of the program came in, and not only did they talk about rehabilitation and some of the more tangible aspects of the benefits that they've received, but some of the words that were used was, you know, through the work that you've done, you've helped give me back my independence and dignity. Because now, you know, MS can cause unbalance, like the inability to stay balanced when you're walking. And they said, so I now feel safer in my own home, not needing to worry as much about a fall. And so thinking about those words, independence, dignity, safety, those fundamental things that we take for granted, that was pretty big. And then more recently, in May of 2018, one of my counterparts from Pearl Gloves, Adam Cook, and I co-chaired something called Hats and Horses, Niagara Derby Day, and we brought together over 500 people. It actually ended up being Canada's largest Kentucky Derby Derby party.
Really?
And we hosted it at the Meridian Center, and we showed 3 of the races leading up to the Kentucky Derby, which is the final race. And for a first-year event, raising $36,000 for local children's charities was really deeply meaningful.
Yeah.
And hearing one of our committee members has been affected by all 3 organizations. She works for Community Care, which we know is very involved not only in providing food and life skills services. She had adopted a child from FACS, which was another one of our charities, and the Niagara Children's Center is another place where her children receive services.
Wow.
So seeing how it could impact one family and knowing that that's representative of so many other families in the community. So very, very exciting.
That's awesome. You should be so proud. I mean, I attended Hudson Horses, and it was such a very interesting event and very different from what we typically see in Niagara. So that, I think that in itself was a draw, and for a first year event having that much success, like I can only think of what will happen next year. So as we kind of get close to wrapping up, what do you see for yourself? Like, we're trying to get to Jess's future vision of Inspired Strategy Group. Where do you see yourself going?
Wow, that's a big question. Through my Leadership Niagara experience, actually, I came up with the personal brand statement, facilitating your awesomeness and inspiring your best day ever. And that was many years ago, so it's morphed a little bit over time, but I exist to help see people at their best.
Nice.
So when I think about the impact that can have on communities and on businesses and just on the general public and your life and satisfaction, that's really my goal, is to help people be at their best, performing with excellence and intention in all the things that they do.
Do you have any additional plans or any future goals in mind in terms of where you would want to see your community that you call home, Niagara?
I think that the most important thing is really engagement. So finding those things, we talked about passion earlier, finding those things that people can be passionate about through process of elimination, or maybe you're lucky and you find it right away, but to be engaged in your community, whatever community that is, to belong to something, to stand for something, because that's really where we see the best results. We see people at their happiest through passion and purpose.
Awesome. Yeah, we could all benefit from a community of doers and people that are just actively looking to exercise their stewardship as people that live here. Jess, I want to thank you for sitting down with us and talking with me. I mean, even though we could probably go back and forth for hours, but I do appreciate you taking the time to sit down and kind of go through memory lane and get a sense of where you're going as a Niagara businesswoman and as an LN alumni. We really appreciate you taking that time to sit down with me. For other people that may want to find out more about awesome Jess and having great days, how can people get in touch with you, find you, plug yourself? Inspiredstrategy.ca
is my website, and inspired_strat on Twitter, or Inspired Niagara to follow me personally. I'm trying to separate church and state here a little bit with my personal life and the business life. So, but if you go to the website, you can find all the different social mediums that you can find me on.
Awesome. And anything else that you want to plug, or anything else that's coming up soon that you want people to find out about?
Just gratitude, thank you. I can't wait. I hear that you guys are launching the class of 2018-2019 soon.
Yep.
So I'm so excited to find out more about that, and really watching Leadership Niagara grow the way that it has with yourself and Rain. You guys have had some really ambitious plans, and seeing it come to action, that inspired action piece is very, very rewarding as a proud alumni.
Yeah, so thanks again for joining us. So high five. All right, that's a wrap. There you have it. Thanks again for joining us, and tune in to our next episode on Return on Leadership.